Almost 5 years ago, we uploaded this short 10-minute video to the crazy internet. Looking back, I ask you, which is crazier? The internet or these three boobs from the Contrarian News Bubble Channel, Becky Not Too Quick, Joe Bag of Donuts, and Steve Leisman? The question is, we know they haven't learned a darn thing, yet they'll be spewing the same crap, in the words of Art Cashin, a load of crap, this week when they're talking about the Federal Reserve. The real question is whether or not you've gotten an education and if you understand where the load of crap is coming from. Listen in.
And so that will ultimately be good news for the broader market today. But also remember that with the S&P at 850, twice we've had the President's Working Group, sometimes known as the Plunge Protection Team, step in when it looked like things might get worse. That happened on October 10th and October 28th. Both of those rallies, nearly 100 points in the S&P. They are completely the product of the President's Working Group.
Hey, Scott, hold on, Scott. Hold on. You're saying the government stepped in and bought S&Ps in the market?
I am saying that the market action on those 2 days and one or two others has all the hallmarks of the Plunge Protection Team at work.
All right, I've heard this before, but you're the first one to say it on TV here. Give us what you're looking at when you see the government stepping in. What are you seeing?
Well, simply the way that the market traded, particularly on the 10th, which I believe was a Friday, and things could not have looked worse. And you could not only see the way the market traded, that it traded straight higher on that Friday, but also just the way that the market felt. It was simply that this was the end of the world, and I just really feel that the Plunge Protection Team did not want the week to end with that kind of sentiment.
Mickey,
Friday. Are you talking about Thursday?
I'm not sure. I'm just very interested in the idea that the government is in there, and I've heard this from other guys before, that the trading seems like or feels like. Bank of America Chief Economist Mickey Levy's here as well. Mickey, do you want to chime in on this? Is the government out there buying S&Ps to support the market?
Absolutely not. I mean, I just think it's a silly discussion. No.
But hang on one second. Repeatedly, government officials have referred to the Plunge Protection Team, which is actually called the President's Working Group. They have repeatedly referred to it, and they have repeatedly talked about its working in the S&P market. The group exists. We know what they do. They've done it in the past, and previously government officials have talked about it. It's
Scott,
not like this is...
I think you'd have to send me a site on that. I've never seen any reference from the PWG about them saying they're working in the S&P market and buying S&Ps.
Point is,
and I know what you're saying, that it's been said that they did it before, but I've never seen it proven before, Scott.
Well, previously, George Stephanopoulos, when he was in the Clinton White House, spoke about it in public and said that it had happened. Well, my point is, the president exists. We know that the President's Working Group does this. And it's tough to look at the market action on the 10th and the 28th of October and say that it was anything else.
Scott, I have my concerns. This seems to me one of those internet things that's out there.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory.
The Plunge Protection Team. I've seen it on internet boards and blogs.
A little bit of money could go a long way in those S&Ps, Steve. I mean, here we are screwing around with all this TARP stuff. I mean, you put $50 billion into the S&Ps, you could get a pretty good move that day.
And then you should truly move to Moscow, Joe, because that would be a truer free market.
It's not a lasting...
But for one day, you get a. If you just deployed $1 billion every 5 minutes into the S&Ps, can you imagine?
Market manipulation.
This is
Scott,
this sort of thing.
I'm not saying it.
Scott, I'm going to leave this as an internet rumor. You want to send me some information that proves this or somehow makes it fact. And I only bring it up because I've heard it before, Scott, from others.
That's conspiracy.
You're not the first guy, but
look at the market action on the 10th and the 28th, and tell me what else might have generated a 100-point rally in the S&P in a situation like that.
That's like, Scott, that's like sending in a guy and knocking off a foreign head of state without telling anyone. I mean, that's almost as much of a conspiracy theory.
I actually don't agree with that at all. I mean, we step into foreign currency markets all the time.
Isn't there Steve, wouldn't you need some kind of legislation that would even allow you to do that?
I suppose they could do that. But Joe, can I ask Mickey about the PPI here? The whole Senate?
First of all, I just want to say I don't agree with that. That opinion in no way reflects the opinions of the show.
Which one?
The government's manipulating with the plunge protections.
We're not saying
the reason I highlight it is because it's out there. It's out. No, it's out there. Others have called me and said, Steve, you got to look into this, and I've looked into this, and what it has to do with is the character of the trading.
I've heard of the plunge protection team. That is something that's true. There is something called the PPT. Would it be against the law for the government to buy S&Ps?
Please. The PPT is, you know what Voltaire said about God? If he didn't exist, man would have to invent them. People can't stand randomness. And if you're in the pits and you've guessed badly wrong and they come and lift your wallet away from you, it can't be your fault. It's got to be some mysterious government invention. That's a lot of crap.
So it's like the second gunman or like we wired the World Trade Centers ourselves. I mean, it's just it's conspiracy crap. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the black helicopter crowd. Yes, they're
that's
there.
The black helicopter crowd. But then again, I thought about the Fed and what the Fed can do in the bond market, Art, and couldn't they buy? We buy back bonds all the time, right?
Sure,
I mean,
they can buy back bonds, but the theory of the plunge protection team coming into the stock market goes back to the '87 crash. We've been through tons of administrations. Different people in Treasury. Don't you think something might have leaked out by now? You know, this is the tooth fairy all over again.
I was trying to figure out how you do it, because if you bought the S&Ps, wouldn't you have to sell them eventually?
Yeah, and then there's all this mysterious double bookkeeping that goes on. They really have to strain to keep the theory going.
Yeah, okay. But you've heard guys whispering where you are about it, that not everyone is of your opinion, I guess, huh?
No, they all tell me, gee, I'm so bright I can't be wrong. It must be somebody else's fault.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'm glad we had you today, Art.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay.
Nice to see you all. This is the first meeting of the President's Working Group on Financial Markets since President Obama was elected and took office. This, as you know, is a critically important group. It brings together in one place, around one table, the most important institutions that oversee our financial system. Together, this group has the authorities and instruments and experience and talent that are going to be critical to helping solve the deep financial problems facing our country. We're going to do two things today. Our agenda is to begin to shape the architecture of a financial recovery plan that'll help get credit flowing again and help reinforce the recovery and reinvestment plan now working its way through the Congress. But we also want to use this opportunity to begin the process of shaping a consensus on a comprehensive reform of our financial system, so that neither the U.S. economy or the global financial system ever again faces a crisis of this magnitude. So I'm very pleased to be here together with this group of people. President believes this group is very important, recognizes the importance of these set of institutions, and we're going to have to do this together, working closely together, not just in the United States, but with countries around the world. Thank you very much.
How are you balancing the issue of getting money out quickly?
I'm nodding, but I'm not going to answer questions. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Corona. You can say no questions.
I see food prices rising. I see gas prices rising even before what was happening in North Africa, although that certainly is an exacerbating reality. Tuition rates rising. And so while we are worried about deflation, I just see a combination of rising prices for the average family, of the lack of investment that I had hoped that would take place here. And so would you give me your view of how the first and second rounds of quantitative easing are working?
I think they're working. I think they're working well. The first round in March 2009 was almost the same day as the trough of the stock market, and since then the market has virtually doubled. The economy was going. Don't become embedded in the overall inflation rate.
I appreciate the market going up. We're thrilled to see that. But to be honest with you, if you talk to an average family in New Jersey and you say, what is your food bill? What is your gas price? What is your tuition rising? They're not going to tell you there's deflation. And so in a real context, I'm wondering how this macroeconomic policy is going to get to the average person in a way that changes their lives in a more positive way. And certainly the market is a nice indicator in one sense, but it isn't for everybody in their lives. And that brings me to the question, how will you decide how to tighten monetary policy? How do you know when you've reached the point where that is wise, and what type of considerations are you going to take into account?
Well, monetary policy works with a lag, and therefore we can't wait till we get to full employment and, to target inflation rate before we start to tighten. We have to think in advance, which means we have to use our models and our other forms of analysis and market indicators and so on to try to project where the economy is heading over the next 6 to 12 months. Once we see the economy is in a self-sustaining recovery and employment is beginning to improve and labor markets are improving, and meanwhile that inflation is stable at approaching roughly 2% or so, which is, I think, is where you want to be in the long term on inflation. At that point, we'll need to begin withdrawing. It's the same problem. I just want to emphasize it's not at all different from the problem that central banks always face, which is when to take away the punch bowl.